Hey Justin, thanks for coming on. I'm pretty excited to have you on this first episode of this playbook series. And yeah,
Not a
not
problem.
gonna
I'm happy to be here.
not gonna ask you to introduce yourself because everyone who's watching this series and this episode will probably know who you are, why you're great at this. And yeah, let's get into it. So the first part, as we were talking, will be like how you set up the first initial campaigns, and the second part will be scaling.
Okay.
Um, yeah, how do you want to go forward with this? Do you want to start sharing your screen or just start with the essentials and then share your screen?
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
start. I can share my screen and just go over some of the foundational ideas that I mean, even before you get into how to technically set up a campaign, there's just some basic ideas of what LinkedIn is or what isn't. The main thing that people love about LinkedIn is their targeting. So if you're actually creating an account or if you're familiar with other ad platforms, some of the reasons that people fall in love with LinkedIn is the audience targeting. So it's not just they follow, they engage with CRM type posts and follow Gary Vee on Facebook. It's very granular as far as these locations, these job titles from these industries and company sizes of this range. You could even throw in growth rate because LinkedIn tracks, I guess the way that they track that is probably the growth of employees attached to that company over a span of time. And you can even add in skills and other things there. So the targeting is really amazing. That one was more of a broad one. Might be a bad example to show people because they might be freaking out over the number. So this one's still probably a little more than what most would recommend, 230,000. This one's targeting marketing decision makers. Oh no, this one's core industries. So I had a couple. I had core industries. There's supposed to be marketing industries. Oh, marketing industries, core industries, and then I had a broad one. But the basic idea that you really want to start with is that LinkedIn should not be in a silo, or you shouldn't think of LinkedIn as a silo kind of marketing channel. It works best because that's usually the other thing. The two things I hear the most is LinkedIn ads is too expensive, and who does this work the best for? LinkedIn ads is really expensive if it's on its own in a silo. I like to run LinkedIn ads as part of an ecosystem. And the biggest determination of if LinkedIn ads is going to be successful for a company or not is what else do they have going on? Do they have quality traffic running to their website from other sources? If they're spending good money on Google search, if they have paid listing sites, if they've been doing great work with SEO or have strong organic, then LinkedIn doesn't have to work as hard on its own because LinkedIn Insights tag can retarget all your website's traffic, qualify it with those same filters that I just showed. This isn't just for cold. You could also say, hey, they visited our website in 90 days and they're from these 5 industries we serve, these company sizes with budget, they're a decision maker, and they're from these countries we serve. And then you get to work retargeting them and squeezing conversions out of that journey. So essentially, is LinkedIn going to be profitable ROI or not? If you have a profitable Google search campaign, then 100%, there's almost no way that retargeting that traffic with LinkedIn ads won't produce a positive ROI for LinkedIn. It'll squeeze extra conversions out of your already solid traffic there. So just thinking of it as that, as part of a larger ecosystem, and then with the mindset that the main thing I like to do with LinkedIn ads is overcome the main objection of trust and credibility. For B2B buyers, if they land on your website from a Google ad, which is probably the lowest, bottom of the funnel, they're ready to buy kind of traffic. The reason that traffic doesn't convert is they don't know you and they don't trust you yet, or they don't view you as the expert compared to the other competitors they're evaluating. So I like to use LinkedIn ads to focus most of my time and energy on overcoming that. Who are we? Why can you trust us? Why are we the experts? Who else have we worked with? What are the results that our clients are seeing? And that's why this is the cold campaign over here. Very little, fleshed out. And then the retargeting campaign is this, more complex, drawn out, lot of effort put into it, because that's, to me, where the work is. And where most people
Mm-hmm.
fail, they do this, they don't get a positive ROI, and they quit, which I've rarely ever seen a company get a positive ROI from a cold LinkedIn ad campaign.
Hmm.
So I guess that
One thing that
mindset would be the first thing.
yeah, yeah, one thing that I noticed is here you don't use any like contact lists or component lists. You're only using LinkedIn's native targeting, right?
For the most part, yeah, and it's because I have this idea that there's your ideal perfect like ICP, but that's slightly different than your ideal ICP on LinkedIn, because your ideal perfect client list, like say you curated the most beautiful 1,000 people that should buy your software or whatever, like there's no guarantee that that group of people are active on LinkedIn. And so you could spend a lot of money trying to saturate that group where only 5% of them ever log onto LinkedIn. There's another group, say your total addressable market, there's a pocket of those that are really active on LinkedIn, really easily reached. They
Hmm.
consume content. So if you're targeting people on LinkedIn, I do like to use the native filters and go a little broader, because you might be surprised that your perfect ideal, client persona is not always reachable or as active on LinkedIn, and you might find a pocket of your total addressable market that's way easier to get in the door. So that's kind of my theory on it.
Are you using like contact list companies on any other campaign, or is it for example, for cold campaigns, as you need to have a bigger audience, you are using maybe like industries, and then on the retargeting side, you are using retargeting audiences plus a company list, maybe?
If I do have company lists, what I like to do is split them out. So I would have a cold initial campaign using LinkedIn native filters, and then I would run in parallel a company list that then uses LinkedIn filters to find the decision makers there, and then I would split out the budget accordingly. So say the native list has 80,000 people in it. You're going a little broader. The uploaded list has 10,000 people in there. So it would only need a smaller portion of the budget. You allocate, a portion of the budget to there, a bigger portion to the native filter, and then you could judge from there. Like I have seen many times where a really solid list does produce way more results, and then it gives you kind of the green light to say, okay, let's dig in, let's get more data, more uploaded lists, and let's shift more budget to there. But that would be my solution, is kind of run them both in parallel and then see where the results take us.
Hmm. I think the biggest like difficulty of using native filters on LinkedIn is if you're targeting SaaS companies or software companies in any way, those filters, like those industry tags, just doesn't make sense. Right now, I think there's like software development, embedded
Yeah.
software, stuff like that. Super hard to
There's
find
internet.
what's the real one. Yeah, marketing
Yeah.
services.
Yeah. It's getting better. I think a few months ago they launched, or they added more industry types, but when we look at the breakdown of where the money is getting spent or what people are getting classified as, I could see that there's definitely certain industries that don't have. Yeah, I mean, there's not a SaaS industry, which blows my mind. Like there'd be so many people that would probably identify their company as a SaaS company, and yet on LinkedIn they don't necessarily know what to put it, because if it's a SaaS product that serves financial services, they might actually classify themselves as a financial service company, and not, or they might classify themselves as a software company that serves financial service. So there is, some gray area in how to target those people or what they're being put under.
Yeah, if there was a SaaS filter that we can target on LinkedIn ads, I would like put all my money on LinkedIn ads.
It seems like a lot of them are under internet or even IT, information technology services. I think there's another one that's just software. But yeah, they're not the best. But I would say that's one thing that we do is we use a third party platform, Agency Analytics, and we can pull data out. So even though we group 10 different industries inside the same campaign, we can then extract that into here and see where we're getting more traction. So we could see that, the cost per conversion or the conversion rate for this industry compared to that, what the differences is. And then we could go back and kind of niche down and say, okay, this one was a little broad, but after 3 months, we see that we're actually have a 3 times higher conversion rate with financial services or this classification internet, whatever that is. So we come back and create a specific campaign that just targets that allocate more budget, and you do it on the back end too. You say, if they visited my website and they're part of this specific industry, let's get a little campaign group that speaks directly to them, gets its own budget allocation, and that campaign should have a higher, conversion rate than the broader ones.
Yeah, hopefully you can use Architect for that as well. Um, for the goal that you put in for cold campaigns, reach campaigns, I saw it's website conversions. Is it standard practice, or do you also use like reach website visits?
For initial campaigns, for most companies, website visits makes the most sense because you'd have to have a decent amount of data, conversion data in your account before you could switch to a conversion focus. So we've been running for years and have hundreds, if not thousands of conversions and micro conversions in our account. So our account has enough data to switch to that. But I would say website visits probably one of the best ones to run for cold. There's definitely a good case for just reach or engagement, just the in-feed consumption. But I do prefer probably website visits for most initial cold campaigns.
And most people who are going to see this target audience size 230,000. Is it like they're going to, yeah. Is it normal for your campaigns, or do you do a campaign for only 1,000 people?
I would say so. I usually would avoid doing one just for 1,000 people. I think the conventional wisdom for LinkedIn ads is minimum. Usually 30,000 is on the small end, and I don't know, 120,000 is on the upper end. I've been experimenting myself with broader audiences, and it's kind of like anyone who's gone deep on Facebook. The consensus right now is that the algorithm is really mature, and you can go broader, and you can let the algorithm kind of dial in on who's the most active. Once you have that data, and LinkedIn's been lagging behind way behind on that. So it's more you need to tell it exactly who. But I have kind of a working theory that it is improving, and especially with as much conversion data as we have in our account, that I can slowly let it have a little more leeway and that it can optimize for those conversions. So I would say for the normal average company who doesn't have that much in there, I would probably shy away from going that broad. But for those more mature that have spent, tens of thousands of dollars on LinkedIn ads, they might test having some broader campaigns.
And when I checked out your videos, I was surprised that you're not spending like, I don't know, $50,000 per month on LinkedIn ads. It's much more than that. If you're targeting this like broad audience, are the CPCs super low because you have been running ads and you have the conversion data, or is it the industry?
The main reasons that I turned off LinkedIn Audience Network, so this is just on LinkedIn in the feed. Our cost per clicks are really low. I think the main reason is I go a little broader for the most part, but it's also I'm really loving the kind of native type ads like this, where it's screenshot of an organic post that's kind of marked up that's actually an ad. And it's funny, like when people click on see more, it's actually part of the ad image that sends them. You could send them to a landing page where it has like a blog style post that has the whole thing. Or what I've been doing lately is I actually just send them to my actual organic post to consume the data. That way I'm not really like tricking them. But with LinkedIn single image retargeting, they're still getting sucked into my retargeting. So even though they didn't hit my landing page yet, I'm able to retarget them and pull them into that layer. Plus, I'm boosting my organic and I'm building trust. Like if they see this, I've won some more trust with them because they see, oh, this has 200,000 impressions, and they probably wouldn't see that, but they'd see this and assume that maybe I'm a trustworthy person to get advice from.
Also, when they click on that social ad, then the CPC is lower because they're still on the platform. They're not going to the landing page. You're paying a lower CPC, and then when you retarget them,
I don't think the fact that I keep them on the platform is keeping it low. I think there's an element of people are clicking on this and don't realize it's an ad that's keeping the CPC low. Like, because if they knew this was an ad, or if this exact image and text were just from my company page, and I think this is a big secret too. So when I take the screenshot, I intentionally capture the social proof, the likes and comments. So I think they give it more weight, because it's so hard to get that on an actual ad. Like, to accumulate 100 likes or 10 comments on an actual LinkedIn
impossible.
ad. Yeah, impossible. But if you did, the CPC would actually be really low. Like, it's just been proven, the more social proof you get on an ad, like you see those Facebook ads that have been running for 2 years and have 500 likes, like they've driven down the CPC over time. So I kind of hack that by just screenshotting the social proof, and people give it more weight up front. And I think that's helped drive down the cost per clicks.
Okay, because I tried this as well for a couple of weeks, and it was lower CPC. That's like the reason I thought it was because I'm like keeping them on the same platform. But yeah, so the CPCs are lower because they have this, they see the social proof and then click on that and then see your post, and then when you retarget them, CPC is probably lower too than the normal campaigns, because from like in my experience, older targeting campaigns have lower CPCs than the normal campaigns on our account.
Yeah.
So on all, like in average, their CPCs are lower that way.
Yeah, they should be. And so, yeah, my general theory of that is that with retargeting, you're putting ads on the screen of people that at least know who you are. They've either interacted with one of your ads, visited your company page, visited your website. So in general, you're targeting a warmer audience now. And so getting them to interact again should be relatively cheaper. I think most of mine, those cold ads do really well. So, I mean, my cold ads are already at a really low cost per click. So it'd be really hard to get, something super lower than that. Like if I was looking for, I don't know, $1 cost per click to targeting. So most of these are actually pretty on track. I'd actually be worried if I was getting 50-cent cost per click. So yeah, so actually my retargeting ads are slightly higher, but I mean, that's still abnormally low compared to like any normal company. So I can't really complain.
And if you had a account maybe for your client and they have like $30 per click, how would you drive that down?
Yeah. The first thing I would do because we run into that all the time. I mean, companies just getting started with LinkedIn ads, starting in the cold layer. Yeah, I've seen $30, $40, $50, $60 cost per clicks. Like, it's not unusual. So the first thing I would do is normally I would go in and I would look for ways to expand the audience, because that's usually if you're targeting and it happens the most, I think, when you're targeting a small group. If you're targeting a group of 1,000, 10,000, 20,000 people, LinkedIn only has the ability to put ads on the feed of people that show up. So the smaller the audience is, the more competitive it has to bid to get these placements, especially if that group is not as active on LinkedIn. So if you find ways to expand the audience, you can drive down your cost per click. Obviously, the goal is not to get cheap cost per click. The goal is to get quality clicks at a more affordable rate. So one of my top things would be, it might make sense to switch from position title targeting to seniority plus job function, because that would allow, with LinkedIn, people are calling themselves all sorts of stuff. Like, instead of founder CEO, they might be the chief, make my people happy officer. It might be whatever. So you might be missing out on key people from that anyway. So expanding and saying, okay, if they're director level and above and they're in business development, entrepreneurship, marketing, operations, like, I want to target them. I think expanding is one of the easiest ways to drive down the cost per click. And I'm okay with expanding it, because I view it differently. Like, it's one thing if you're going to cold call a list. You want that to be only the best decision makers. You want to boil that down as best you can. But when it comes to marketing, I'm okay advertising to the 4 or 5 other people in the room with a decision maker, and not just hitting the decision maker. Because in my mind, I can accelerate that deal and get buy-in faster if I'm hitting the decision maker and some people around him. So actually, I'm okay with expanding the audience, beyond a little bit and being a little looser. That's also my theory with, some of my larger than normal audiences, is I'm okay targeting more people in that room. And it's hard to prove, the effects of that, but logically, I think it makes sense that that can soften up and accelerate a deal if you get more people in that room to, when he starts the conversation, if there's other people in the room that, hey, yeah, I've seen those ads before, that looks really interesting. That's a lot that can move things along a lot faster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. And for example, if you have a smaller audience, like for example, 5,000 people,
Yeah.
and then if you run a reach campaign, do you think that would work because the audience size is small, so it doesn't need to like track the people who's like likely to convert on your site?
So if I had a group of 5,000 people, and let's say I knew that was like my best decision makers, I would rework this whole strategy. You can't wait for retargeting at that point, or else you'll never get there. So what I would do is I would move a lot of this. I guess I would just move it all into one layer, because the other thing you're going to be looking at is the frequency. So if you're targeting a group of 5,000 people, even with a halfway decent budget, your 30-day frequency. So if I change this to 30 days and I look at frequency, your 30-day frequency might be way higher than this. Your 30-day frequency might be 20 or 30, because you have such a small group of people. Even with a halfway decent budget, you can saturate that group really well. So then I would look at this. My theory on frequency is, do you want to match the number of creatives you have in a campaign with the frequency for the time frame that you're looking at? So for a cold campaign, it might be looking at 90-day frequency, and all it is, you would change this to 90 days and you would look at that frequency. And if the 90-day frequency of that campaign is 20, meaning the average prospect within 3 months sees 20 ads from that campaign, I would want 20 ads in that campaign, or a series of campaigns that have 5 ads each telling the story I want. So basically, I think of it like this: like, your frequency is how many individual assets you can put in front of that prospect. So if your 90-day frequency is 20, you have 20 chances to tell them something. What do you want to tell them? Who we are, what we do, the main pain points we solve, why you can trust us, the results of people that work with us. So you figure out those 20 things that you want to tell them, you turn them into ads, and then you put it, rotate evenly. And that's a hack that I don't think a lot of people know. By default, LinkedIn will set this to distribute by performance. But if you had a core group of people and you had a frequency of 20, the goal then isn't just to show them the top performing ad as many times as you can. The goal then is to get a bunch of different things in front of them that tell them the story that you want to tell them, so that you can change, their thinking. So you'd put 20 ads in that campaign that show different elements of what you want to tell them, and then you'd set it to rotate evenly. So throughout those 90 days, they're seeing 20 different ads evenly. They're seeing 20 unique ads versus the 5 top performing ads, 5 times each. And that could make a huge difference too.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. And if you have 200 people in your campaigns, how many months would it take them to go to the retargeting section? Like 3 months?
If you had how many people?
200,000.
Oh, 200,000. It comes down to the cost per click and the budget. But typically you only need about 300 people to create a retargeting audience. And if you're pulling in as much as it also depends on, your website traffic and company page visits and all these other things. But if you're just looking at LinkedIn in a silo, 200,000 people, if you're spending, even just $2,500 a month, you'd probably get into retargeting in month 2. You'd for sure, I think, have enough 300 plus people to start retargeting them.
Mm-hmm. One hack that we are using on the retargeting side is we are running ads on our playbooks, which are gated, and then when as we are running them, they are going into our website and then putting their email addresses. And then once we have their email addresses, but we didn't have that before, we can see the previous visits, and then when they visit again, I can see that. So they're in our targeting group. They have been engaging with our ads. They have not given their email address yet, but I know, like from Clear, that this company is like looking at our website, looking at pricing, and have not raised their hands yet. And then with those playbooks, they'll see like we reached 1 million impressions per month, 10,000 clicks per month in 6 months. Give us the email address. Let me send you a SEO playbook, and then we can see them checking out product pages, and then we can like customize our outreach based on that. And it's not cold anymore because they have read our playbooks. They have been checking out our website for 200 times in the last 9 days, and then seeing our ads as well.
That's pretty nice. And that's the big thing I preach to is it has to be, it has to be kind of a multi-channel, multi-touch process. Like anything in and of itself is really hard to carve out like a positive result. But if it's, the playbook and then an ad and then an outreach, like those multiple touches through multiple mediums, like that really makes a difference, especially once you identify they're no longer a cold, as long as they know who you are and what you do, those touches, it becomes way more worth it to stay in front of them and to, find different ways to reach out to them or just stay in front of them and kind of tell your story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really love your approach on that. And we have a similar approach to LinkedIn is like on the middle, and then it's empowering all the platforms and ad channels that you have, including like a Clearbit account, your email platform, everything with intent and like key data, and then you can retarget them as well. Is there anything else that's like you think essential to the initial setup process?
Yeah, for the initial setup process. So obviously, I think people get targeting, right? They get excited about LinkedIn targeting. I feel like they do a halfway decent job at that. One thing I would say is first, you really need to set up your retargeting audiences. So if you go into plan, you go into audiences, these are custom ones, but they make it really easy for you to say, I'm losing it. They make it really easy for you to set up your retargeting audiences. So for people just getting started, or if they haven't started yet, this is the first thing I would do. I would get the pixel on your website, and then I would set up these retargeting audiences. You click on any of these, and it walks you through it. Website, 90-day visitor, 180-day visitor, 30-day. I would just set those different ones up just to have them so they're collecting and pooling data even before you think you need to use them. Company page visitors, that one's retroactive. So even if you didn't set it up right away, you can always go back and it just has that data stored. The website one is probably the most important to set up because it doesn't go back in time. It doesn't start collecting data until you actually create that. So you don't want to create that up front. And then my other big one is conversion tracking. And this one, I would give it a lot of thought because it's kind of like, people are hearing all about the lead gen and demand gen. And if you're chasing a bunch of crappy quality leads, it's no different with conversions. If you're only tracking surface level like conversions, like the higher up the funnel you're tracking, the less powerful information you have. Like for example, if you're only tracking form fills on your website as a conversion, then even your best account manager in the world, all they can do is optimize to that. And inevitably they're going to go after whatever can get the most form fills for the least amount of money. Logically, if you stop and think about it, it's going to result in lower quality conversions because that's the cheapest ones you can get. But that's the best your account manager can do because that's the most you're tracking. So if you move the goalpost to tracking call bookings, and it's as easy as setting up a URL redirect. If they book on HubSpot, they book on Calendly, forward them to a call booked confirmed page on your website. So now you have a goalpost and you can start tracking call bookings. And then it's the same thing. At least now you're optimizing for booked calls. But the cheapest, easiest booked calls to get are usually the lowest quality leads. The smaller companies, those are the cheapest ones to get. And if you're just optimizing towards that, you're going to result in having more meetings for less money, but lower quality meetings. So of course, the next logical step is you need to be able to track actual purchasers. And I don't care if you're selling $100,000 SaaS platform, you can track conversions. You either make it as if they're sending you ACH as part of the onboarding process for intake form, they fill out the intake form and they get pushed to a purchase confirmed or welcome page that only paying clients would ever see. And then you have an actual trackable conversion on all of your platforms that you can assign a value and you can set up conversion tracking for. Now you're no longer optimizing for the cheapest booked calls, you're optimizing for actual purchase, new clients. So that would be my big advice is get conversion tracking and get serious about pushing it as far down the funnel as you can. Because when you're actually get going and you just see a bunch of conversions coming in, like the only way to know if that's good or not is if you have values assigned to it and if you're tracking as far down the funnel as you can. Otherwise, even if you are tracking form fills, booked calls, and purchases, if you're just optimizing towards the most conversions and you don't have values assigned to them, then you're just going to be going after, lead form fills, because that's the easiest way to rack up as many conversions as you can for the least amount of money, but they just might not be converting down the funnel. So I would assign values and then optimize towards that. And it just puts everyone on the same page.
Yeah. And not only is it enough to track those conversions, have those conversions on account, but also if you have multiple different campaigns, for example, for enterprise, you have one campaign, for mid-market, you have one campaign, and then for, SME, you have one campaign, and then you have a few different conversion tags for all those plans. Then you need to choose the right conversion goal and the right campaign group so that you're optimizing for the right goal, right?
Yeah, that's a good point about the deal sizes. Because an enterprise form fill should be worth more than like a small business form fill. And so ideally you should have different conversion goals and assign different values. Because if you don't, then of course, whoever's managing your account, the easiest way for them to win is just go after small business form fills, because that's the best way for them to get a bunch of conversions for the least amount of money. But that's not the most valuable use of the ad spend if they can snag, more enterprise form fills, and if that's worth 10 times as much.
Yeah. And
good point.
For example, if it's working for, 3 months and then now you want to scale up, what's the right process around it? Is it just increasing the ad spend and increasing the audience size, or are there any nuances around that?
So this one can be tricky. Even if you've done everything right, you start getting conversions, you start seeing the conversion values, you're doing really everything right. There's some common mistakes that I see that you should really avoid. A is, I can't tell you how many times I've seen this from mature companies. They'll look and they'll say, hey, most of our conversions and conversion value are coming from the retargeting layer. The cold layer is pretty much a dud. Like it's not a positive ROI. Let's just kill it. Let's cut it off, or let's continue to reduce the ad spend to this and roll that money into retargeting. The problem with that, of course, if you stop and think, is that it's the cold layer that's fueling all of the great traffic that the retargeting layer is converting. So if you cut off the source, the thing that's dropping all those good prospects in the top of the funnel, then this will dry up really quickly. The cost per conversion will skyrocket and you'll be scratching your head. I can't tell you how many times I've seen that. It's crazy. And the other thing is, so for me, it's all about looking at it as an ecosystem and then kind of almost like a mix board, like dialing certain things up, dialing things back. And one trick that I use to do that is for conversion tracking, I track each and the last. And I think that's something that I haven't heard really too many people talk about. So I have call booking last and call booking each. And what that means is, and I assign different values. What that means is if there's 4 ads that someone interacts with before finally converting, each means that each of these campaigns or each of these ads get credit for a conversion. So which means that's what I would say 90% of LinkedIn advertisers, they set each. So it overstates how many conversions there are. You had 1 booked call, but LinkedIn is showing 4 conversions. And then the other one is last. So if they interacted with 4 ads, then converted on this one, last would only show 1 conversion and just to this. The problem with that is, so now you're stating how many conversions you got correctly. The problem is you're missing out on the journey. These 3 were a very important piece to this converting. So if you're only tracking last and you say, oh, these 3 are duds, let's put all our money behind this, same thing. The funnel dries up, the conversion, cost per conversion skyrockets. And so you're left with like kind of a messy funnel. Like I see that happening a lot when people try to scale. So I track last in each, and I have them in different values. And then it becomes a budget thing. So for example, let me look at we're actually, stalled out on scaling this because we need to grow our inbound sales team. We're booking about 150 demos a month right now, and we just don't have the capacity to field 200 calls. So I actually can't dial up my marketing machine until we get that solved. Before it was ops, we were selling so many things that we didn't have enough team to manage them. Now it's back on, we don't have enough people taking inbound sales calls. But if I was going to scale this up, the main thing I would do is, so this one's paused. I think it's just ad scheduling. You can't just pour more money into top performing accounts. So say this one is my top performing by far, but my frequency, let's see, is this 90 day? Oh, actually, so this is a really good example. My 90-day frequency is 5 on this. And this is my top performing campaign. So if I go in here and it's a 90-day retargeting campaign. So if I go in here and I have more than 5 really good ads running, which I do, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I have about 8 ads, and I think most of these are really good ads. But the average prospect is only seeing 5 of these in a month. So that tells me I could scale this campaign up by just increasing ad spend. That would be easy enough. If the frequency matched how many ads I had in here, then I would have to input more creatives before I could scale it up. Because if you don't, like say I just doubled the ad spend on this campaign, the frequency might shoot up to 15 and they just see the same 5 ads tons of times and I'd have diminishing returns. It wouldn't be as, like you can't just double the ad spend and it double the output. So there's little nuances in matching. As you increase the ad spend, you got to keep an eye on the frequency and the time range and make sure that you're matching how many solid creatives you have in that campaign to the 90-day frequency that you're retargeting with. So that becomes a balance. And then even if you have the right amount, then you can dive in and say, okay, which retargeting ads are producing the best? Can I get different variations of those? Can I improve them? So it's never going to be as easy as you just dial up the ad spend or even, identify which campaigns are working the best and dial up that. It's a really delicate balance of, what's contributing to this one converting, how many creatives do I have, what's the whole journey look like, and then, dialing up and down those different campaigns accordingly. So yeah, it's a little more finesse than I think most people would think.
Yeah. To your earlier point on the conversion checking side, I loved how you because you were unhappy with our software for attribution, whatever it is, you created your own linear attribution model where each you give it credit, you give it equal credit, and then you do everything on LinkedIn platform, which is super hard to do. And also on this section, what I have been experimenting with is, I want to get your opinion on that. If I add a cost cap, it works better than maximum delivery for some reason. I don't know why. I put it at $40. It doesn't spend that much. Probably it's 20, 25 maximum for a click. But if I put it way above that limit, it works better for us.
So that's another good point. So yeah, when you're talking about companies that are having, because my account's a freak of nature compared to the average client account. So yeah, if I had an account that had $20, $30 cost per click, manual bidding or cost cap would be something I look at. And manual bidding is something that I found to be really effective. I don't have to use it that much in mine because mine are already really low. But what I would do is I would go into that individual campaign and I would look at the cost per click. I would look at this view. I'd look at the average cost per click and I would try to kneecap the big peaks. So for example, this is my highest peaks are 14, 12, 14, but I get a ton of clicks still under 10. So with this data, I could confidently change my manual bid to 10 and I could immediately kind of cut off those extreme highs and I could force it to under 10. And then I would let it run for a few more weeks and I would come back and there's just a little dance that goes with it. You keep walking down your manual bid until you get to the point where your ads aren't getting placement or they're not spending the daily spend. So for example, if you have $100 a day ad spend and you keep for that campaign and you keep walking down your daily bid, at some point, you're going to have a whole week where it only spent $20 or $30 a day. So then you finally got to the point where you bid too low. You bid too low to your point where you're not even getting your ads placed. But you could keep walking down the manual bid and checking. If it's continuing to spend your full daily budget, you know that you still have room to keep walking down your manual bid, and you can keep forcing it to you can eventually find the equilibrium where you have the lowest possible manual bid while still spending your daily budget. And the lower your daily budget is, the more you can push that down. Because the way it works is, say your daily budget is $30 a day, like LinkedIn often is spending that before 11 a.m. Like, if you have maximum delivery, it has no discrimination. It's just spending that. But if you say, okay, I have $30 a day and I'm not spending more than $10 a click, it just stays in the game like way longer. It's looking for like affordable clicks for you, and it's staying in the bidding process all day. And so that's way easier for it to do with a lower daily bid. And you can easily walk yourself down from 30 down to, $10 a day or something lower, doing it that way.
Yeah, what I hate about LinkedIn is if you have 10 different creatives under one campaign group, whatever it is, and then if one creative, and we have this one where like I have our CTO's face, and then there's like really ? Still using Google Analytics plus HubSpot for attribution ? And then this one works really well, and then in that campaign group it spends like 99% of the budget, and then the rest of it doesn't spend anything. And I tried to do everything. I even put that into a separate campaign group, then it doesn't spend anything. I don't know why I'm talking with the support still about this, but if something is working really well, if you find something really working well, then it's a problem too, because it spends all the budget before 11 a.m. as you mentioned, and also it spends the whole budget of that campaign group.
Yeah, so I would say, have you tried switching it to the evenly distribute versus performance? Because naturally, when you have performance optimized for performance, that's exactly what it does. It takes whatever your top performing ad, and anytime it's able to place that, it just places that. So if you're looking to get a more even distribution, they do have this option here, and it's not perfect because it's still like you'll have multiple creatives that go into the bidding process at the same time. And so your top performing one will often still have a higher quality score or whatever and get placed, but it's definitely better rotation than if you just optimize for performance. And then, yeah, like you said, I would try that too, where you take that top ad and maybe just put it in its own little campaign that has its own budget. And then the remaining ads are in another campaign and they have their dedicated budget, and maybe could get some more rotation.
Yeah, I tried this for a short time, but next week I'm going to try both of them. And it's like, I'm going to choose evenly on one campaign, and it's going to have its own campaign. Yeah. Let's see how it goes.
And that's a good way to segment too, is you can easily just like duplicate any campaign and then change one thing. So like, yes. I can duplicate this campaign, and I just grab all the same creatives that are in there, and then I'll change one thing and be like, okay, this is now just to marketing agencies, or this is now, change one variable, and you can easily, A, B, C test some different things and see what works better. So that's nice.
Exactly. Thank you so much. Is there anything else that you want to mention before we go?
No, I think that's the main thing. I would say this is also probably one last tip is if you go to breakdown and you click on off network, it'll easily show you what of your spend is going on LinkedIn, or if it's on audience network, it'll show you. I probably have to go to all time to find some, because I stopped using the audience network for most of my stuff. But it'll easily show you what spend is on LinkedIn and what is on the audience network. And then you can also see, where your conversions are coming from and the cost per conversion. As I tested ours, and this is my second ad account, we had another one earlier last year, but it was pretty clear that 95% of our conversions were coming from the on LinkedIn, but the audience network was taking way too much a proportion of our ad spend. So we ended up curving most of it to on LinkedIn in feed. And that's, I would say 9 times out of 10, when I go and audit like a client's account, they're spending ungodly amounts on the LinkedIn audience network, and not nearly enough of their spend is staying on LinkedIn. And they didn't even realize it. It wasn't something that they intended to do, and they didn't realize LinkedIn ships that much off their platform. So it's just something that for the average person to probably keep an eye on.
Yeah, when we first started, I remember that like we were getting thousands of clicks for 50 cents.
Yeah.
Really good. Then, and also most of these companies have like sales cycles of, I don't know, 6 months, and then just wait for 6 months to turn them into actual customers, and it's costing lots of money.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot. This is something to good keep an eye on. But yeah, I think that's the basics. And I think if you can follow just even the tips that we outlined here, I think you'd be in a better position than most funded startups who are dabbling with LinkedIn ads.
Yeah. Thank you so much for everything, Justin. And yeah, see you.
Not a problem. Thanks, man.